This week on List Rate Rank.
You have your wife and 3 kids with you, and you're traveling the world. That's got to be crazy.
It is crazy. What are we thinking?
On List Rate Rank, our hosts research various topics and each bring their own top 5 list to the show. Together they debate, discuss, and deliberate, and with the help of an expert, one definitive and indisputable top 5 list is created.
The answer is 206.
This is List Rate Rank.
Welcome to List Rate Rank. I am David Fedor.
And I am Joe Wittrick.
Welcome to the show. Joe, today we are talking about traveling.
It's not just about traveling, it's the best reasons to travel.
Yes, we are taking a look at the impetus, the inspiration, the reasons that you get off your couch, get out your door,
Well,
and
impotence
go
would be one of them.
Not impetus.
You have to go pick up your Cialis.
Yeah,
Reason to
that's
travel
reasons
number
to travel.
1, impotence.
We're going to be joined later on in the show with Ricky Shetty. He is a world traveler. He has his own blog, and he'll be setting us straight in terms of the traveling. But until then, you and I did a little bit of research ourselves.
I'm sorry, I just thought of like 6 more boner jokes.
Well, thank you for not sharing them. It's not that kind of show.
We'll circle back.
Look, our dinosaur episode, we talked about enough dicks and vaginas.
Yeah, but that was for scientific research. This was just for fun.
Well, I guess, well, we'll get into that.
Sorry, we'll get it straightened out.
Yeah. Is that itself a dick
I'm
joke?
slowly slipping them in.
You're the worst.
Thank you.
So, Joe, you're not yourself a traveler, are you?
Not really. I figure if anything you need to see, you can see right here without crossing a river, or going through a tunnel, or going over a hill. That's what the internet's for.
So you're saying with the advancement of technology and everything at your fingertips, information and videos, pictures, things like that, there is no reason to travel?
Yeah, there's no reason to go anywhere.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, I can get a drone to drop off my Amazon orders. Like, I don't even have to go to the mall. Speaking of malls.
Yeah. Pretty sure they're non-existent anymore.
Exactly,
anyway.
exactly. Now, in the post-prehistoric internet world, malls were the place to go. That was like the internet for a generation. You needed to know something, get something, buy something, talk to anyone, you went to the mall.
But I think for this topic, at least, when we're talking about travel, we want to look a little bit beyond the mall, right? Hopefully, I don't know what you have on your
My list is a little different than yours, Dave.
You need milk to get you. Oh.
Why buy the mall when the cow gives you the milk for free?
Well, let's dive in. Earlier today, we had a contest.
Earlier today, me and Dave decided to draw straws to see who went first, and I completely misunderstood what that meant. So here's my picture of a straw, Dave, and you've clearly won.
So that means I will go first with my number 5 reason to travel: being cast on a reality show, specifically The Amazing Race.
Oh, okay, so your reason to travel is they're forcing you to travel.
Right.
I think this goes back to my point from earlier about not ever having to leave the house.
Well, if you auditioned for and got cast on The Amazing Race, then you would specifically have to travel.
Yeah.
So that is my number 5 reason.
Would you do that if you had the opportunity?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yep. Sign me up.
Yeah, it seems like, one, you could get hurt very easily.
But then there's also a race aspect too, because the word race is in the show, so I think you have to go from place to place and get there.
And like do your challenge once you get to the
Do
place.
your challenge and then continue on.
So it's like little travel stations.
Little travel stations. You could fly. You could take buses. You could take trains. You could take bikes. Like, travel the globe.
So it's like Cannonball Run.
It's like a reality version of Cannonball Run.
Or Mad World. Was that enough Mads?
I think it might have been a few too many.
Too many Mads.
But yes, it
Or
is
Rat
like that.
Race?
It is the amazing world.
That's hard to say that many times, isn't it?
I had some energy drinks before we got here. So.
Yeah, very good.
What's your number 5?
My number 5 top reality show is... Oh, wait. My number 5 best reasons to travel, number 5 is to avoid the law. And much like The Amazing Race, you look at someone like D.B. Cooper. D.B. Cooper, who his reason to travel was he hijacked an airplane, $200,000, jumped out of it, disappeared forever. Who knows if he's alive or dead? He's probably dead now. That was a long time ago.
D.B. Sweeney's reason to travel was to try to make it on a hockey team.
Oh, very good. And how'd that work out?
He didn't. He had to take up figure skating. Tell me more about running from the law.
No, running from. I mean, it's a classic Thelma and Louise. They travel because they're running from the law. The guy that there's a guy recently who worked for an armored car company, killed his partner, took a whole bunch of money, traveled to Florida because where do scumbags go? Florida.
No, that's a good choice. It almost made my list, but I swapped. It was originally set as my
Avoid
number
the law?
4. Yeah, escaping the law, but I actually replaced it with. I don't want to say being the law because that doesn't make sense, but
If you're like a U.S. Marshal, you'd have to travel.
It's a taken or fugitive situation.
No, yeah.
So where you are, somebody that you loved has been taken, you have to go get that person back. So it's like the reverse of your number 4.
So the
or your number 5.
antithesis. So yeah,
Yeah.
I dig it.
So yeah, you are running to, you are chasing, much like Tommy Lee Jones chased Harrison Ford in The Fugitive, much like Liam Neeson was chasing down the bad guys who keeps taking his daughter and his wife and his
You would think the guy could learn to
neighbor.
protect his family.
And then now they're like making a TV show out of it or whatever.
Jeez, oh man.
Like how many people? But yeah, so reasons to travel, to free your loved ones.
Got it. I dig it. And is that your number?
That's my number 4.
Number 4. That's really good. I like that. Now this is completely void of any kind of emotional value. My number 4 here. Reasons to travel, and this is actually a true story. Because gas was only 89 cents a gallon at the time, and that was my reason to go to Canada.
So mathematically, let me think this.
Well, mathematically, gas went down to 89 cents a gallon, so we're like, hey, I've got $11. Let's go to Canada. So we filled up the Chevy Caprice and drove up to Niagara Falls, crossed over the border. That's before you needed a passport to do so.
Yeah.
Gambled a bunch, drank a bunch of Canadian beers, drove home. That's what we did.
You and I drove to Canada once.
We did. We had Ben Palmer of the Cellar Dwellers was actually with us on that trip. We went to Windsor, Ontario, right outside of Detroit. And it needs to stay outside of Detroit.
I mean, between the two, I think I prefer Windsor.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was very nice. Unfortunately for Ben, he didn't have the best time.
No.
We got to get Ben on the show.
We
to
should
talk
get
about
Ben on the
this.
show to talk about this.
All right, my number 3 on my list,
Yes, Dave.
WrestleMania.
Okay.
So,
Why?
Well, every year the WWE has the biggest wrestling show and biggest wrestling weekend, and it's always in some exotic locale. Every WrestleMania, people from all 50 states go. So people come from Alaska, people come from Hawaii.
Puerto Rico?
Probably.
I'm just used to all 3 of those states being mentioned in the same breath. Like void in Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. Or price is subject to change in Alaska, Hawaii, or Puerto Rico.
Well, absolutely, Puerto Ricans definitely go to WrestleMania. Most countries, if it's a developed country, somebody from that country is going to WrestleMania. It is like a destination.
I would love to see the data on the demographic
See,
of
I
WrestleMania.
tried looking it up because they always say from all 50 states, 113 countries, 83,000 people ascended to the... I don't have any of those stats in front of me. But
That was pretty good to make them up like that.
Yeah.
How many countries are there? Is 130?
hold on.
Wait, are there more than 130 countries?
They're...
Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached our Google break.
Siri, how many countries are there?
The answer is 206.
206? That's like as many bones as in our bodies.
Siri, how many bones are in the human body?
The answer is 206.
Wow. That's crazy.
That is actually ridiculously crazy. That not only is it true, but that you knew it.
I was just gonna say I want one of my bones to be buried in each country.
Holy shit! Now that's a reason to travel.
There you go. But I like posthumously travel.
Right.
I don't want to, just start lopping off bones every time I go to a different country.
Wow. Bones in every. The pause that you hear is us writing down
Bones in every country. Now that could be a movie.
Wow, like that's a way to get away with murder. Is Shonda Rhimes listening to this podcast right now? How to get away with murder? Bury one bone in every country in the world. Oh man. So yeah, WrestleMania number 3.
All right. Well, Mine is a little less ostentatious. My number 3 reason to travel is to get food. So much like the Great Migration of the dinosaurs.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you had to, and what do they call that? The Grapes of Wrath. Like all these people are traveling because they don't got no money for food.
Yeah.
So wow, that was grammatically incorrect. But so yeah, a lot of people will travel for specific needs like jobs and shelter, and food I think is a very important one. And even though people that have gone to Chicago from Pittsburgh to buy pizza and come home. So yeah. It's really stupid to do that, but,
Yeah, but it's a
it
reason.
happens. But it's a reason.
Oregon Trail, a lot of people had to
Yeah.
travel to shoot that buffalo and carry it. And
Absolutely.
stuff like
And I mean, I don't know how far they were traveling away from their wagon when they went to hunt, but they
Right.
should have been able to get more than 100 pounds of that on there.
that. Yeah.
You know?
The math didn't work on that.
Or
thing
like,
either.
there's 6 of you in the party. Take one of the kids that doesn't have dysentery and bring him along to carry some
yeah.
shit.
Or you know what? Let that one walk for a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But yeah, so to get food,
All right, so we're to my number 2.
yes.
Your typical bucket list scenario. So you're terminally ill. You have so much time to live. Travel. Go see the world.
So you want to just leave everything that you've worked for your entire life because you're dying to like go
Yep.
to other places?
Yep, because
That
now
seems-
it's all about the experience. You can't take any of this shit with you. So sell your house, sell your car, get all the money, and go see the world.
This is some kind of like about Schmidt situation.
Or bucket
What was
list.
Bucket List?
Yeah, the other Jack
The other
Nicholson
Jack Nicholson movie about
specifically about a bucket list called Bucket List.
I always forget the title of that.
So going and seeing the world before you can't anymore.
That's I could see how some people would see that there's merit in that.
See, and clearly you don't.
I really don't. It's one of those things. I could look at the Great Wall of China on my laptop.
See now, but it's not the same as being there and actually.
It's probably
seeing
safer.
it. Which brings me, so in researching this topic and specifically this bucket list type thing, I got into like the 7 wonders of the world.
Right?
How familiar are you with the 7 wonders of the world?
Well, one is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, right? That's gone. No one knows where the hell that is.
Right.
The pyramids, right?
Yeah.
The Great Wall of China is that on the list?
It is, depending on the list.
So the 7 wonders
here's the
are.
thing,
We're gonna have to rank the 7 wonders now.
Well, between there's like the traditional list. There's now the new, quote unquote, new 7 wonders of the world, which have been changed since. There's like 7 wonders of the industrial age, 7 natural wonders of the world.
Oh,
7
so this is almost as bad as one of those like top 100 movie lists that get put out all
right.
the time.
So
Yeah.
unfortunately, it became so convoluted that there's so many. So on a future episode, we're gonna have to do the 7 wonders of the
Or
world.
the worst wonders of the world.
We'll do a special of the worst.
Worst.
It'll be top 5 of the 7.
I don't know. I still think hummingbirds flying backwards is a pretty wonderful thing. The only bird that can fly backwards, Dave. How's that not a wonder of the world?
My wife loves hummingbirds.
There you go.
So yeah. So yeah, that's one of mine is to see some of those wonders. Maybe take some selfies with it. All right, what's your number 2, sir?
My number 2 is much like the 7 wonders of the world, but to visit historic landmarks. Again, not something I need to do, but I know a lot of people dig that kind of stuff, like Mount Rushmore. People like to go see that. That's a historic landmark. In case you're not familiar, it's out in one of the Dakotas. Who cares which one? They both suck. And it's got a bunch of presidents carved into a rock face.
What are other landmarks that you would actually travel to see? We already know you're not going to go see Babylon and things like that. Anything local,
Local.
or not even local, but like how far is far? for you?
You know what? I don't like to fly. I saw the arch in St. Louis. That was so impressive. I mean, I guess I'm just disappointed when I see some of these things, and some of the things I see, like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, disappointed. Was it the Football Hall of Fame? That was cool, but it was not worth the drive to see a whole bunch of bronze heads and some guy's shoe that had no toes that kicked a 60-yard field goal once, and that's what I took away from there.
You took the shoe?
I took the shoe. So if you're
shit.
looking for the left one, I have it. I saw Niagara Falls. I mean, it's a lot of water.
See, I love Niagara Falls.
Yeah, it's
I've been there a
cool.
couple
It's a
times.
fun party town.
You don't stand in front of it and marvel at the vastness of it's a natural phenomenon.
Yeah, and
This river,
it's slowly destroying itself, Dave.
well, that's what it does.
I just can't get behind something that's going to be so self-destructive.
Joe, you're describing yourself. Is this a little bit of self-reflection?
I think so. I'm much like Niagara Falls. There's a whole bunch all at once, and over the course of time, I'm going to disappear. And you can find my bones in one of 206 countries that are spread throughout the world.
Can I tell you a quick Niagara Falls story?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was in high school, and we took a school trip up, and everybody was in a bus and things like that. We were in the Canadian side, standing right along the railing, the part where it's running alongside you, and you could, like, if you could, reach down and grab. I was so fascinated with the speed of the water going by that I spit into the water just to watch my spit go over the falls. And
Totally worth the drive.
And I was like, oh, like part of me just went over the falls, and I was kind of all excited or whatever. And I looked to my right, and there's a guy standing there, and then he shakes his head and said, Americans.
And where was this guy? Was he Canadian?
I don't know if he was Canadian or just European or what. I couldn't discern any.
Did he say Americans with a cigarette in his hand?
Americans. No, it was just he had a look of disgust on his face, and it was just like, America.
No, there's a reason to travel: spitting off of famous landmarks, like the Eiffel Tower. No desire to ever go up in the Eiffel Tower. Just like I had no desire to ever go up inside the Arch in St. Louis.
Unless you could spit off it.
But yeah, see, it's still not worth the. I mean, I could see wanting to do that.
Yeah.
But just not for me, man. Not for me. So. Yeah. So yeah, visiting historic landmarks was my number 2, Dave.
So this brings me then to my number 1 reason to travel, and that's you find yourself in a Brewster's Millions inheritance type situation.
Okay, but why would you have to travel for that?
Because that is an amazing way just to burn a ton of money.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, weren't there some kind of restrictions on what he could,
Well, I haven't seen the movie in a couple of years.
I'm sure we could Google the rules and actually see it. Because one of them, he wasn't allowed to have any possessions.
He wasn't allowed to have any possessions. He wasn't allowed to. All right. So for those of you who don't understand the reference, there was a movie in the 1980s with Richard Pryor, John Candy, where Richard Pryor's relative passed away, had like $300 million. It was going to go to Richard Pryor if he was able to spend $1 million in a month.
I thought it was $30 million.
I don't know. Let me check.
I'm pretty sure it was being able to spend $30 million in a month, and he would inherit $300 million and keep it from the evil banker guys.
So here are the Brewster's Millions rules. Brewster is challenged to either take $1 million up front or spend $30 million within 30 days to inherit $300 million.
I could do that on Amazon Prime in one sleepless night.
Well, now, yeah, but in 1985, when this movie came out, it was not possible.
No, that's 1985 money. That's got to be like $100 million.
Biggest problem, he can't tell anyone what he's doing. If he fails, the lawyers get their money. He's not allowed to have any assets to show for the $30 million or waste the money in any way throughout the month.
So
that is my reasoning. Travel,
yeah, I guess
super
you could,
expensive.
Yeah,
you could burn through $1 million a day by flying private jets, eating expensive shoes.
Oh yeah, eat expensive shoes. Well, I mean, I guess Italian leather doesn't come cheap.
You're not wasting it by eating it and
Right.
digesting it and using it for fuel. Eating expensive foods, drinking, paying for services.
Yes, services, Dave.
You know
Paying for
the services I'm talking about.
Yes.
So easily, the best case scenario to burn through the money would be to travel.
I could see that. I could see that being a good way to blow through $30 million. That should be another list. How would you spend your Brewster's Millions money?
That is a good list.
I think that would be a good one.
We're going to have to start writing these down.
So that was Dave's number 1. So Dave, I have another one here for you. And this isn't so much about travel. This is more of like a cultural kind of thing. And it's to travel. The best reason to travel for me, I guess, would be to understand other cultures and people and other people's way of life.
You went deep there.
Not as frivolous as spending $30 million, sorry. But yeah, I think it's, as much as I don't like to go to other places, I'd like to learn about what goes on in those other places. which again I can do with my laptop. But I think it is kind of neat to see the way of life that we have here. And not, even when I say here, I mean just as something as localized as being in Pittsburgh, the different way people live as opposed to, you know, those jerks down in Florida that are all scumbags, or people...
Wow, again with the Florida.
I'm really mad at Florida, man.
What happened this week?
I just... It's like every horrible thing either ends up at, or happens in, or is from Florida.
Okay.
I mean, it's just one thing after another down there. I mean, hurricanes.
Hey, if you need to talk after we're done recording, I'm here.
All right, fine. But
also, all of our listeners in Florida, I apologize on Joe's behalf. We value your downloads.
oh, yeah, we want to understand your culture, so we can prevent it in other places.
Where are some of the places you'd like to go and experience?
I mean, I love the culture of Canada, especially during hockey season or the Olympics, because it really is like the country comes together as a whole. In fact, Dave, you and I were in Canada during preliminary curling matches for the Olympic Games, and it was about 10 o'clock in the morning. And we had asked our concierge at the hotel we were staying at, where can we go to get a beer and some lunch? You know, because it's 10 o'clock in the morning, you're in Canada. And we roll into this bar around the corner that is just packed with people watching curling, fighting about curling, and had been drinking since like 6 a.m. when curling started that day. Yeah. And very welcome and very opening, kind of got us all in the curling. Yeah. We became honorary curling fans.
To be fair, to qualify and quantify what you're talking about, it was 10 in the morning, but for us it was still from the night before, because we drove through the night, hadn't slept yet, and this was like lunchtime for us.
Yeah,
and we had been drinking since...
so we fit
3 in the morning. So yeah, we were definitely living Canadian lifestyles. Similarly, I haven't yet to, but I want to eventually at some point get to Mexico to see some Mexican wrestling, some lucha libre.
Oh, nice.
I think that would be an amazing thing.
See, and understanding that and seeing the people that come out for that and are passionate about that kind of stuff, I think is really neat. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, so that is our individual top 5 lists. But we have a very difficult task of narrowing these 10 things down to one list to present to our expert. Luckily, 2 of those will be automatically put into our joint list. So an inheritance, money windfall, and experience other cultures will make our top 5. But now we have to, with no other duplicates between us, choose from 8 for our final 3 to make it into our list. So let the bidding begin.
I'd like to start with avoid the law, and I think we both had very similar opinions about that.
Well, avoid the law, and then I also had being the law.
Being the law, yeah, and I think this would actually be one of the more accurate reasons that I would travel, because you're kind of forced into it. Running from the law,
or chasing,
if you're traveling for work, like to be. I mean, essentially, you're traveling for work.
But yeah, let's unprecedentedly let's join these 2.
Okay, running from or to the law.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we'll share this one since it was pretty much on both of our lists,
and we'll call that.
Call that law.
So yeah, that's the first time this has ever happened before, depending on when this podcast is aired.
So that leaves us with dying and having a bucket list situation, WrestleMania, get cast on a reality show, visit landmarks, eat some food, or because gas was cheap.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a case for. I really want to make a case for WrestleMania.
I don't think that's going to fly today.
I know you're not going to concede on that, because talking about experiencing cultures and going somewhere. All right, so what do you think should be a reason to travel then?
I definitely don't think it should be wrestling, but I would say from a perspective of not going to White Castle or an IHOP, but to get food, to travel to, essentially get resources for sustainable life.
See, I would argue opposite. I would think it would make more sense to travel kind of like experiencing cultures, experiencing different foods, eating things that you can't get here. Like you could see stuff online, but you can't eat an authentically made, you know,
No, I don't, Dave.
corn on the cob.
I'm pretty sure we're in Pennsylvania. I'm pretty sure we don't have to go too
like,
far for that.
I'll tell you a quick story. Here's a quick story. And the case for your pick of food. I was suffering a little minor depression back in 2011, and I traveled to San Diego. I got a free trip through my friend.
Timeshare?
No, we were running from the law. I'd never been to California before. I'd never been to San Diego before, which is real close to the Mexican border. All the food there was so ridiculously good, so authentic. Because it's right by the ocean, there was amazing seafood. Because it was right by Mexico, they had amazing Mexican food. And I spent the entire week that I was there eating. And when I came back to Pittsburgh,
Right.
I was completely I was out of my funk, and this food brought me back. So traveling and having that experience of culture and that experience of food is a pretty powerful thing.
No, it is cool. Yeah.
It's not like, scavenging for food like you propose. So that's why.
Well, no, I wouldn't say scavenging for food. You're scavenging if you stay in where you're at. But when you travel to find, sort of like in the Land Before Time, where they travel to the Land Before Time, the valley, whatever, Happy Valley, or whatever the star flowers grew. So then they were able to have a sustainable life, just like people traveling during the Dust Bowl. They had to go where they could grow food.
Right. So in a very strict, literal sense, you need to travel to get food, but then also you could also travel
for enjoyment of food. Yeah,
All right,
I
I'll
think,
give
yeah.
you food.
All right.
I'll give you food.
Food it is.
We have one last reason. I'm going to propose because you're dying.
Yeah, I guess pretty much.
It's not going to be WrestleMania. I'll give you that. It's not going to be your cast on a reality show because that's pretty much you're forced to. The price of gas, I don't think.
Yeah, especially now.
Especially now, yeah, you can't. You would have to travel back
So
in time.
we're going to call it bucket list.
So, bucket list.
Bucket list. All right, and so I think one of the great things about bucket list is it kind of encompasses a lot of what we've already talked about here too, because one of the reasons you put these things on your bucket list is because you want to see these landmarks, you want to see and understand other cultures, you want to eat food that you wouldn't have before, and chances are if it's your bucket list, you're probably gonna not give too much about the law chasing you down. So I think it can kind of encompass all of these fun reasons to travel.
Absolutely, and I think we did a good job of narrowing down ours, but of course that doesn't mean that this is the absolute list.
And we've got some honorable mentions too.
We have some.
Sure.
So, the ones that I have, hitting the lottery. It's much like the inheritance.
Right,
That's why
right.
I did make the top 5, but actually winning the lottery. A honeymoon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So traveling somewhere to celebrate.
Because it's not good enough here, baby. We gotta go somewhere else.
Or, hey, this is going to be probably one of the last times we ever get to go anywhere. Let's do it now. And then also family vacations.
Now, see, I also have to see family was an honorable mention, but I thought that was too close to running from the law. So that's why you leave a family
See,
vacation.
I'm on mine road trip type, get in a car with the Griswolds and travel that way.
Oh, that reminds me of one of my other honorable mentions, a reason to travel. And this is a personal story. Ben, our friend who we took to Canada, broke his arm and then sent him back home drunk. Would like to say hi and thank you to his wife. So one of the reasons Ben does a lot of traveling is because in 2001, I made a bet with him that he couldn't have a drink at every Hard Rock cafe that existed at the time. So he took that bet. So he has until he dies. Otherwise, he owes me $100. If he does it, I owe him $100. He's already spent thousands of dollars trying to do this, so I feel like I've already won. And now a lot of these Hard Rock cafes don't exist anymore and have been torn down. One, I think, is a church now.
Oh,
so what he has to do is get a shot glass with the city of that Hard Rock Cafe and do a shot in the former location of those Hard Rock Cafes.
So he has to go to a church and do a shot?
I think it's a church. It might be a doctor's office. I don't know. I don't pay attention to a lot of things he says. Like, ouch, my arm hurts.
No, for real, guys, it's black and blue up my arm.
Yeah. So that was a bet we made, and we're now in, what is it, 2001? What year is it now?
It's 2018.
So 17 years?
Yeah.
He's been doing this for 17 years?
That's crazy. How many Hard Rocks were there at the time?
I don't remember. There was close to. There had to have been like 80 or 90 of them because it
And
was
how many
you know,
do you think
2000.
he's done?
I know for sure he's probably about 40 into
This
that
is
list.
2 times that we've talked about Ben. We have to call him.
We're gonna have to get him on the
Call
show.
him right now.
Call him right now. Let's see here. I'm gonna go ahead and put Ben on the speakerphone of my Samsung Galaxy 8. It's ringing. Hey, Ben, you're on List, Rate, Rank right now. How are you today?
Fine. How are you?
Fantastic. We were just talking about you. We're doing our top 5 reasons to travel, and 2 stories about you came up throughout the course of the show, and we wanted to just touch base with you so that people can kind of put a voice to the face.
Hi, Ben.
Dave's here with me.
Hi, Dave.
How you doing, man?
I'm great, buddy. What's going on?
Well, like Joe said, we're recording our podcast, and we keep telling stories about traveling and talk about the time that we went to Windsor and you broke your elbow.
Oh, yeah. I did break my elbow. Literally.
Yeah,
Playing soccer with a bowling ball on an ice rink.
Like you do.
Yeah, so sorry about that, by the way.
No, it was my own stupid fault.
Well, I guess sorry for not attending to you or following up with any kind of...
No, we followed up with perfect medical attention based on a regimen of drinking and ibuprofen.
There, see, I told you, it works in every country.
But now the second story that came up, go ahead, Joe.
Is the reason that you like to travel so much is because of a bet we made.
Ah, the bet.
Yes, tell the fans a little bit about the bet.
The mortal bet that we have made, well, sorry, I'm trying to file my local taxes online, so this
So I believe it was 2001, right?
Yeah, it was around the turn of the millennia, and we were discussing Hard Rock Cafe, and I always liked the thought of going to different Hard Rock Cafes because of the different rock memorabilia that they have throughout different cities. So
Right.
each city has its own theme, like the one in Louisville has kind of a guitar theme where it's predominantly guitar. So it's kind of neat. We were talking about this, you and I, Joe.
Yes.
And Joe says to me, I don't think you can go to every one. And I said, I'll take that bet. And he goes, all right, $100 says you won't be able to go to every Hard Rock in America. So I'm working on it, and I've currently gone to 23. I had to count my shot glasses.
Out of how many?
I have to count my out of roughly 45.
All right, now,
45, okay.
hold on a second. Now, you are sitting within eye distance of the shot glass collection right now?
Yes, I have them on my wall.
That is awesome. That is so great that you have such a commitment to this bet.
Yeah. So, and also in order of the order in which I get the shot glass. Not necessarily the order in which I've gone to the Hard Rock, because the caveat in this is the bet was made in 2001, so I have to go to all the Hard Rocks in existence in 2001. The problem is they've closed many of the Hard Rocks from 2001. So, some of them I lucked out in, but New York, the New York Hard Rock Cafe moved from close to where the Ed Sullivan Theater is to Times Square. Now, I've gone to both locations, but the one at where Ed Sullivan Theater was is the one that matters. So I've gone to that one, and the way I do it is I go to the cafe and get a 2-ounce shot glass, because the only way you can get the 2-ounce shot glasses with the city's name on it is by going to the cafe or getting them online. So I go to the cafe, I do a 2-ounce shot, I keep the glass because that's a perk of, spending $11 on a shot. And you get to take the glass home. So places like Newport Beach don't exist anymore. So to rectify that, I find the shot glass online, and at some point in my life, I'll have to make it to Newport Beach, California, go to the address where the Hard Rock Cafe used to be, and do a shot.
And what's there now?
The fact that the last time I checked, it was some major chain, like a Chili's or something like that. But I don't know exactly. It could be a parking lot for all I know. It might be a bank. It might be a bank at this point. I don't know. I haven't looked in the last year. But yeah. So that's.
But you're over halfway there though.
I am over halfway there.
And how much
But
money do you think you
that
spent?
Okay, so hold on. So that was also part of why we went to Windsor, was right across the way in Detroit, there was a Hard Rock Cafe that I hadn't gone to. So, while Joe, you were passed out pretty drunk in the back of my van, left you parked on the side of the road while Dave and I went into the Detroit Hard Rock so I can do a shot so we can drive back home.
I remember that because, and I have pictures, we'll have to post them online, of Joe ridiculously covered in blankets and just dead in the
I
back
had built
seat.
a cocoon in the back, and I said, I will get across the border, don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm sleeping the rest of the way home.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing the story, man.
Yeah, Ben, thank you very much. We'd love to have you on the show.
The amount of money I have to buy enough money to get there, or I have to have enough money to get there, and then I usually eat. So the minimum I spend is like $12 per shot glass. Mind you, I'm at 21. The most I spend is, with dinner, and if my whole family's there, it's almost $100. So no,
plus travel.
I'm not making out on this bet.
Like I said before, I feel like I've already won.
Yeah, you have.
Ben, thank you very much for being on the show. We hope to have you on as one of our experts in the future. And have a great night, and good luck with those taxes, pal.
Good night, friends.
Good night, Benny. Wow, that's awesome. I'm so glad we called him.
I'm so glad he was doing his taxes in the middle of all this.
It's like the last day, too. He has only a couple more hours to get those done.
We should put a clock up, the Ben's tax time clock.
Well, now people at home will know when we recorded this, so when this airs in May, like a month from now, they'll be like, what? They sat on this episode for 4 weeks. All right, so we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors.
One's TurboTax now, apparently.
But when we come back, we're going to hear from Ricky Shetty. He's going to be joining us. He is our travel expert. Their second guest for the show. This is the first time we also had 2 guests on.
I know, a lot of precedents have been broken. Even Rick's having a drink with everybody at that table over there.
Well, he's got a bet where he has to do a shot every podcast he's on. But yeah, we'll be back right after this.
Hello, my name is Brian, and I help run Disc Golf Examiner. Now, you may be asking yourself, what's disc golf?
Golf! Frisbee golf, Jerry! Golf with a frisbee!
It's a growing sport that is played like golf, but with a disc or frisbee, and your target is a basket made of chains that catches discs.
Get it!
We want you to join us during this exciting expansion of our sport. If you're interested, check out Disc Golf Examiner on Facebook and YouTube, or visit us on our website at discgolfexaminer.com. And as always, keep banging those chains.
Yeah! Woo! Woo!
All right, welcome back. We're joined with our expert. Ricky Shetty is the owner and operator of Daddy Blogger, where he writes about parenting from a father's perspective with a big emphasis on family travel with young kids. Currently, Ricky and his family are traveling around the world as part of their hashtag Daddy Blogger World Tour, visiting Asia, the Middle East, Africa, South America, and Central America. Ricky, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Joe. It's a joy, honor, and a privilege to be on your show here today. Looking forward to it.
And I understand you're in Costa Rica right now. Is that right?
Yes, I am, and I apologize if there's bad Wi-Fi here. I'm in a hostel outside of a national park. It's called Manuel Antonio National Park. It's actually the most popular national park here in Costa Rica. So anyone who's been to Costa Rica will be quite familiar. But because we'll see what happens. Apologies for the bad Wi-Fi, and hopefully it'll be good for the duration of the podcast here today.
Tell me a little bit about traveling with your family. You have your wife and 3 kids with you, and you're traveling the world. That's got to be crazy.
It is crazy. What are we thinking? Vancouver, BC, Canada. And we left our hometown of Vancouver, BC, Canada on December 6th, 2016. And we've been traveling continuously for almost a year and a half. And I've been to 80 countries on 6 continents. And my kids have already been to 28 countries on 4 continents. So one of our big goals is to be the first family in human history to visit every country in the world.
All 206, which is the same amount of bones in the human body.
There you go. Or by United Nations, the definition is 193 United Nations member states.
United Nations always gets us with math.
How old are your kids? Your kids are still pretty young, right?
They are very young. So my daughter is 5 years old. My son is 3 years old. And we have a little guy, 1 year old. So they're all 5 and under. So as you said, when you introduced me, we are crazy to be traveling around the world with kids who are 5 and under, but we're enjoying it.
You can get the discount at all the International House of Pancakes.
Yes. I don't believe in the International House South and Central America, but correct me if I'm wrong. But so far, we haven't gone to any IHOPs here.
Well, how international can they be? In South America.
You know, they got to expand. But we do definitely get a lot of discounts. We get discounts, and a lot of times kids under 5 would be free, or kids under 12 are free. So that definitely helps with the travel budget by not having to pay full price for them.
Now, is that something you look for when you're traveling? Is like airlines that give you the best rate for the family? I mean, I imagine the expense of traveling with 5 people has to be an awful lot. So how do you keep on a budget?
Yeah, what we do is we travel mostly by land, so we're not actually flying very much. We're on our loop of the continent, from Brazil and to like the Guyanas, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Colombia, and Chile. In 5 months, we did the whole loop. And then here in Central America, we've been traveling overland from Mexico into Belize, the El Salvador, down to Costa Rica, again, no flights. So by not having to fly, we definitely save money. And also because I'm a travel blogger, we get a lot of stuff sponsored. So you get hotels, food, transport. So that obviously cuts down on the travel costs as well. So yeah, and we're definitely not traveling luxuriously. We're traveling very budget. So family budget. We're not eating ramen noodles all the time. And we're not just eating bread and Nutella. We're giving our kids proper nutrition. 5-star restaurants or staying in, the Hiltons. We're not staying in the Hiltons of the world.
And if you boil it down to just everyday expenses, you don't have this stuff at home. You have all that turned off or whatever. All of your expenses are going to the traveling that you're doing. You don't have to worry about rent. You don't have to worry about mortgage, right?
Exactly. So we don't have any hard costs in Vancouver. We actually sold most of our stuff. So we have sold our home, we sold our cars, we sold our furniture, we sold most of our stuff except sentimental stuff like our wedding album. We didn't sell the wedding album. I know it would have gone a lot on eBay, but we kept the wedding album and we kept some children's mementos, and they're all at the storage at my mom's place. So my mom's holding the fort for stuff until we get back, but pretty much everything we need we have right now. And if we don't have what we need, we'll buy it. And it's easy to buy what we, if we're going to a cold area, we can just buy stuff. But we're focusing on a hotter climates, and therefore we can actually just travel with carry-on only.
Yeah,
so we're traveling the world with only, which is even more impressive.
So how many countries have you been to so far then? You said you want to do them all, first family to do them all. Do you have a number?
Yes, so it's been 80 countries total in the course of my life, but it's been 2016 until now. At the time of recording this show, it's been 28 countries on this trip and then 80 countries overall.
Wow.
That's very impressive. I couldn't even get to all the states. And like I was telling Dave earlier, I'm not a big travel guy, and so I kind of don't even want to go to all the states, let alone other countries. So this is a really neat thing to kind of get your perspective on why you wanted to do this. What was the impetus for deciding, hey, we're going to, sell everything and travel around?
The best question you could ever ask me. The start with why question. At the end of the day, David Jones, right? I mean, we want to create better human beings, and if we raise them in a Western suburb, I don't think that would be doing them justice, because we want to teach our kids about compassion and empathy. We want to teach them about poverty, about globalization. We want to teach them about different cultures and languages. We want to teach them about all the different natural beauty of this world, and also the man-made beauty, the Taj Mahal and the Great Wall of China and Machu Picchu. We want to show them like the Everests of this world and the Grand Canyons of this world and the Ayers and the Iguazu Falls. So we want to show our kids, not through school, not through traditional school, but we want to show the world through really believe the world, the best classroom, and travel is the best teacher. So we're definitely doing this for their future, and
that's awesome.
More countries than a lot of people get to do in their lifetime. So
no, absolutely.
Yeah,
now, is that something you're going to continue as they reach school age? To look to continue to teach them in the world and homeschool?
Great question about how long. I like to say we're going to keep traveling until we run out of countries, or until we sail off until we run out of countries, which is 193. But we're gonna settle at places like fast for a year and a half. But the fast travel definitely is tiring. Packing, unpacking, checking in, checking out, taking buses, taking trains, checking boats, the trains, planes, and automobiles, right? So it's definitely tiring, and you can get burnt out. And we have, honestly, so we're going to be settling in the Philippines, where my wife's from, for at least the next 6 months. I call it settling because it's a long time. Our kind of travel schedule. Usually it's like 1 week here, 2 weeks there, 1 month in one country, right? So we're going to be in the Philippines for about the next. We might extend it a little bit, and then we're going to plan the next stage of our Daddy Vlogger World Tour. We really want to do Africa next. We haven't done Africa. I've only done Egypt, and as a family, we've only done South Africa. South Africa, we went on an animal safari last year. We're going to do the Middle East. We're going to do Eastern Europe. So yeah, we're going to keep going, guys. We're going to keep going until the money runs out and the countries run out.
That's great. You have, like you said, you're doing a lot of this for your kids. Your oldest is 5. Are you already starting to see some of the an effect on them already, or like multiple languages? Tell me about that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing the impact that travel is having on our kids in terms of their identity, the identity formation. Like our kids have super socialites, like here, and I'm basically just on any view. My kids are basically talking to the backpackers here, and they're able to form really strong connections and ask really intelligent questions. Like, and I'm actually quite wowed at it because I never taught them. I didn't really teach them. Okay, these are the questions you need to ask, and then if they say this, then you say this. I never taught them the skills. They just learned it through osmosis and by watching us, right? Kind of like modeling or reflection. They're like, okay, mommy and daddy ask these kind of questions, so we're going to do the same. So they're very independent, and they're very intelligent at such a young age. So I can already see the impact travel is having on them in terms of their strong identities. They're building up confidence, socialization skills, their cultural awareness. They're learning geography, obviously, through all these travels. They're learning history. They're learning languages, like we're Americanish now. They're, getting there. It's probably like my daughter's probably at like a high intermediate level of Spanish. Yeah, definitely a lot of amazing skills we've seen our kids develop over these travels.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's a really cool thing that you're doing there.
Now, would you definitely recommend it for other people to do, or is this something a specific type of person has to be a specific type of person to be able to do it?
I would recommend in a heartbeat. I believe anyone and everyone should travel to some degree. Travel can mean different things to different people. It could mean just traveling to a different state. I think, Joe, you mentioned you haven't even been to the 50 states. Well, you don't have to Asia or to Australia. You can just travel to the next state or to a new state, or even to a new part of your own state.
Well,
state
in
or your
Pittsburgh,
province, right?
in Pittsburgh, it's really
So-
difficult for us to cross bridges and go through tunnels. So we kind of claim a neighborhood as home, and that's kind of where everyone ends up. But no, I agree with what you were saying, like expanding your horizons and so forth, which I try and do by reading and learning. I was telling Dave, I've seen most of the world from the comfort of my couch on my laptop. So.
I want to make sure that we cover, because clearly you've gone all over the world and are very well qualified to be our expert here on our travel episode. So I want to present our list of our top 5 to you now, and then I'll have you rank them from 5 to 1.
Sounds good. I've been waiting all week just to hear your list, so I'm super excited. Let's hear your list.
So the first one, and this is in no particular order right now.
This is reasons that we think people travel.
Number 1, an inheritance. So coming into I call it a Brewster's Millions situation, where you get a windfall of money and need to spend it right away. So you're going to want to travel. The next one, go ahead, Joe.
Is to understand other cultures.
All right. Next one, in no particular order, food. So not only traveling to get it, but also to travel and experience and taste different things.
And the next one is the law, either running from the law or chasing after someone who's running from the law, like a Liam Neeson kind of thing going on, like in Taken.
And the last one on our top 5 is a little sad. You're dying. It's a bucket list situation. You have things that you want to see before you die. So that was our top 5 reasons to travel.
I love your list. That is hilarious. I would never have inheritance as the number 1. The understanding of the cultures, that's quite common, obviously. Experiences, that's quite common. Running from the law, unless you're hurt, can be very common. And in death, unfortunately, death is what causes people to travel, right? So I love your list, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
So what should we do?
So
Them 1 to 4.
Yeah, rank them from least to best. In your opinion, what is number 5 on our 5 that we just gave you?
Okay, so I'm gonna say the worst reason to travel is to wait until you're dying. Okay, so don't wait until you're on the deathbed, and don't wait until you become like Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicklaus in the movie, right? Because then it's gonna be too late. I mean, it's never too late. These guys are. Why wait? Because they had such limited and spoiler alert. One of them actually does die. Spoiler alert. They waited till they literally, physically, and metaphorically were on the deathbed, right? So, why wait until I choose that as the last? Running from the law, I don't think most people will fall into this category. Most people are. I think most of your listeners, I hope anyway, won't even consider this as one.
Yeah, we don't discriminate. We don't discriminate. If you're a low down, dirty deadbeat, you can listen to our podcast. We'll take any listeners at this point.
You know what? Shout out to all the inmates who are watching and listening to this podcast from around
Florida as well.
Yeah, you never know. You never know where someone's listening to a podcast from. So there are probably some prison cells that are. Maybe there's a whole group of inmates who are listening to this podcast. I wish I could travel too. When I get out of jail, when I hit my parole, I'm gonna travel the world too. So that would be probably number 4.
Nice.
Number 3 would be inheritance, because this is you don't need a lot of money to travel the world. You don't need inheritance. You don't need to win the lottery. I'm surprised you didn't add that one to the list, by the way, win the lottery.
Honorable mention.
You don't need millions and millions of dollars. The Austin Power, finger the millions. You need is a decision, and a decision to do it. I really believe that once you make a decision to do it, especially if you're traveling in like Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, traveling to Bali, India, compared to Canada, US, Europe, Australia. So you don't need inheritance a lot of money to travel to Southeast Asia, to Africa, or South and Central America. So that would be number 3. And the top I believe you said 1 was understanding other cultures and the second was experiences. I believe those are kind of go hand in hand, right? Like, travel to understand it. If you're living in a multicultural city like Los Angeles or Chicago or New York City or Sydney, Australia or London, England, you're going to have other cultures. Like, for example, there might be Middle Eastern people where you're living, but it's very different if you actually go to the Middle East as opposed to meeting Arabs in your city. It's very different if you go to Asia as opposed to going to a local Chinese restaurant and talking to the person who's immigrated, right? So you can understand cultures to a degree by living in a multicultural city, but it's much more powerful to go there. And then, the whole thing about experiences, I believe that's what travel is all about at the end of the day, is having these life-changing inner and outer experiences, the change of the mind, change of the heart, change of the soul, change of the spirit, and the change of your behavior, and you're going to be a better person. So that's how I'd rank your guys' list.
Yes,
great.
Thank you. So we lost food in there. Would you put food as your number 2 then, and then the cultures and experiences as number 1?
Was the one, yeah. So food would be number 2, and then experiences. I believe that food is kind of a subcategory of experiences, because when I look at experiences, I look at it as like full immersion, right? Full immersion. So you're immersing yourself in terms of the language, the food, the history, the culture, the sightseeing, staying in local places, doing homestays, doing Airbnbs. Experiences is number 1. Food's number 2. Inheritance or money is number 3. Running from the law. Shout out to the inmates, number 4. And finally, death or waiting until you Jack and Morgan is number 5.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much. And just a real quick question for you. So what country has the best food so far?
Every country has the best food. That I'm gonna skirt around your question, because every country has such unique food. I mean, America has incredible food. Canada, we have the poutine. That's probably one of the most amazing inventions in the history of the world. The poutine, which is French fries and gravy and cheese.
That is very good.
And of course, the pad thai. India has the curries, right? The butter chickens and the rotis and the naan bread. China, you got all the incredible the chow mein and the chop suey. And then Europe has all the amazing the breads in France and the sausages in Germany, the fish and chips in England, right? So I really believe every country has such unique food, and that's why we travel, so we can experience those foods. So the best street food, I would say, is Thailand. Best street food is Thailand, I would say, then Vietnam and Mexico really has great street food. My personal favorites, I really love Chinese food. I love Thai food. I love Indian because my background's Indian. I really love Mexican food as well. So yeah, that's I would say definitely every food is the best food in the world.
Also, so those are our 5 that we were able to come up with between the 2 of us. We asked you before you came on here to come up with your own top 5 list, which may have some bleed over with what we just talked about, but can you go through your top 5 now?
It definitely blends and there's overlap, and we never talked before the show about your list, so I happen to have Running from the Law on my list as well.
Did you?
No, just joking.
Oh,
I do not have Running from the Law. That was one of the most creative answers you guys could come up with. I don't have Inheritance on the list, but I do have 2 out of the 5. Well, not in exactly the way you expressed it. So I'm going to talk about my 5 reasons, and I feel that the reason we travel is, so I define these, or I describe these 5 reasons in terms of learning. So number 1, learning about yourself. What I'll do is I'll outline the 5, and then we can go into deeper detail if you want. But learning about yourself, number 1. Learning about others, number 2. Learning about other cultures, learning about cultures, number 3. Learning about the world. And how does that look like? Obviously, I already talked about the inner changes. Your mind changes, your heart changes, your soul changes. Learning about others. We're no different, whether we're white or brown or black or yellow or red or anything in between. We're all humans. When you cut us, we all bleed the same color, shades of 50 shades of red, if you want to call it that. We all bleed red, right? So, and of course, we learn about other cultures when we're traveling, and we talk languages. When you're traveling, you get to learn all about these different languages that the world has, and then you're learning about the world through the natural beauty and the man-made. And the word, how is the earth formed in terms of like Pangea, and how is it spread, and how is the earth colonized has a huge. We sometimes forget the Spanish roots or the British roots of America. We forget about the French colonization of Canada. We forget about the Spaniards colonizing all of South and Central America. We forget about Africa. Like the history of the French and the Belgians and the Dutch, right? And Asia, like French coming in there, and even the Spanish coming in there, the British, right? So we really learn a lot about the world through seeing the world. So those are my 5 reasons, and feel free to do a deeper dive into any of those reasons.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you've learned about yourself being on the road for now a year and a half? A lot of these lessons are going to be different for everybody. What's some insight that you could give about traveling and what you learned about yourself?
I learned the fact that I'm born in Vancouver, BC, Canada. I'm very privileged. If you're living in a Western world, you're relative to another American or another Canadian or another European, but relative to the rest of the world, we're very privileged. And just the fact that we have this opportunity to travel, I'll give you a quick example. I was just in Nicaragua a week ago, and when we were in Nicaragua, we did a homestay, and we were doing a homestay hour from the Costa Rican border. And here I am, I was on country number 79, and we are doing a homestay, and this family was staying with dad, wife, and they had 2 kids. And they have actually never left their city. They've never left their country. They're only 1 hour from the border, but they've never left the country. And here I am, in country number 80. So I was very humbled by that experience. I almost wanted to just buy them a ticket and say, hey, it'll cost me probably like $50 US to get them all across the border and back. But wow. At the end of the day, you can never force someone. I cannot force them to travel, or I can't force them to cross that border, right? They got to make that decision. And poverty, sometimes, of course, it's fully poverty. People cannot travel for poverty alone. But I could tell with them, if they really wanted to, they could have made that hour journey. They could hitchhike. They could stand on the side of the road and say, we want to go to Costa Rica, right? And they could find a way to get there. So for some reason, they've chosen not to. There are a lot of Americans, they don't have a passport. A lot of Canadians and a lot of people from around the world. Sometimes it's just a choice. So I really want to emphasize this fact that anyone and everyone can travel to some degree. Again, poverty might be an issue. Health might be an issue. Running from the law might be an issue, but you can travel. It might just be traveling across the cell and talking to that you're scared of. It might just be traveling to that neighbor that you're kind of curious about. Like, why is that person walking around with a person headgear, right? Maybe you just want to talk to that person and find out about them, find out their story. And life is all about stories, right? And we all have our stories. We all have our messed up pasts. But travel really teaches you that we're all the same. We're radically similar, yet we're radically different. You guys, you have a radically different background, and I have a radically different background than you guys. And the people we're visiting here in Costa Rica, they have backgrounds too, yet we're all similar. So this is one big learning. This radical similarity and this radical differences really fascinates me. And to the nth degree, I want to really understand, how are we so similar, but yet how are we so different in terms of religion and political affiliation? And why are some people Trump supporters? Why are people Obama supporters? And why do the Obama supporters hate the Trump supporters, and vice versa? And why do we judge each other? And why is a country like Nicaragua one of the poorest countries in the Western world? Why is America one of the richest, right? And I want to understand all these differences, and I want to understand as individuals really form a better world. Because I think at the end of the day, no matter where we live in the world, that's something we share. The globe. And after seeing so much of it, I want to make this world an even better place. So if I can do that through my travel or through these interviews or just inspiring people to travel and see the world, I really feel that travel can bring world peace to some degree, right? We don't need to wait for the politicians to wait for the military to put down the guns. We as individuals can cross that bridge metaphorically and physically and make friends with a neighbor and make this world a better place. So that's my conclusion. Let's make this world a better place through the power of travel.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, beautiful. I can't think of a better way to end. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Tell all of our listeners how they could hear more about your story and tell us about your blog and everything.
Yeah, it's very easy to find me. I'm all over the web. I'm daddyblogger.com. And of course, my big passion is to inspire other families to travel, but just people to travel generally, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're divorced, whether you have kids, whether you're empty nester, whether you're on your deathbed as a senior. I hope and I pray and I desire that what I'm doing through my blog, through my social media, through my podcast, through my YouTube will inspire more people to travel. Ultimately make this world a better place, like I said, through the power of travel. So if I've done my job by inspiring any of your listeners to travel, then it will be all daddyblogger.com. And I have links to all of my social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, my YouTube channel, my podcast, etc. So Central Hub, daddyblogger.com.
Thank you very much. It's inspiring to hear your story, and it's even more inspiring to hear what a healthy effect it has on your children and the rest of your family and so forth. And so it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you very much.
Yes, please give your best to your family and good luck and have amazing times. I can't wait to watch and see what the rest of your journey is going to be like.
Thanks, everyone. I'm saying gracias, hasta luego, ciao, adios.
Please rate and subscribe to List Rate Rank on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you download your podcasts. Follow at List Rate Rank on Twitter and Instagram, and like List Rate Rank on Facebook to join in on the fun. This has been List Rate Rank.
And many more.
Joe, today we are talking about traveling.
Yes, we are.
Wait a yes and.